why were they learning to fly? What was their mission? And I thought I was going to attract people that say, I want to go fly for Air Canada one day. I want to be a Delta captain. I want to be, but what I learned was shocking. It was no,
Mm.
my daughter just had a grandson. And now I have this grandson and I want to take him flying one day. Or
Mm.
the grandkids live 500 miles away and it's just such a long drive. And that's why I'm learning to fly. And I went, it totally changed my mindset. I'm thinking I'm building airline captains. In reality, this guy just wants to see his grandson. Like that changes your marketing, that changes your pitch, that changes how you teach in your courses. And I know you've had those conversations after seminars where someone comes up to you and tells you why they're doing this. And you go, wow, I that just hits home. Like, because I have a family, because I have these things. Like, it's just so different when you think you know your customers until you really start talking to them.
That's interesting. I actually, my wife got me a birthday gift this year, which was a flight with a local pilot, a guy that we knew who actually runs a local business, a karate school, amazing individual.
Wow.
And he got his license during COVID because it was the only way he could have that control back to be able to travel and do the things he wanted to do with his family. And again, people are inspired by all these reasons. So it's really interesting to hear how you started to understand your customer and the people that wanted to learn that training. Everyone's a voracious learner if they're given the right place and focus and energy to do it. What I also
Mhm.
took away, Jason, from your story is that you're really a ready, fire, aim kind of guy. I like that, much
Yeah.
like myself. And it reminded me of the very first Infinite Banking Bootcamp course that we taught, which we did
Mhm.
very much the same way. We were building the session before the week that we would deliver it,
Yes.
and I was
Yes.
printing out the workbook like 10 minutes before everyone showed up to the venue.
So good. So good. And then even that, like, we went that route as well. And we'd get on some of these live calls with people. And I would have, like you said, this perfect presentation plan, but then someone would come up and say, hey, I want to buy an airplane one day. I'm like, wow. And we'd steer the whole conversation that way. And sometimes when you let your, again, you kind of run it as democracy. When you let your customers kind of dictate some of this, you learn so much. I guarantee your first, infinite banking bootcamp is nothing like what you're doing today because you have so many reps in and you have so much feedback. You know exactly who your customer avatar is.
Yeah, absolutely. And more importantly, we just know how to serve them better. And
Yes.
because we've had that experience, we've had those questions, we have material and additional content and thing that really they're able to go through that learning experience and answer that question almost on their own before they even get a chance to speak to someone,
Wow.
not because they have to, but because they can.
Yes.
Right.
It's
And
good.
the online content world is really powerful for that. Now, I can see it from my perspective and I can see the challenge even the industry would give. I'm like, how can you teach people how to fly an airplane, which is,
Yeah.
let's be clear, a little bit dangerous,
Right.
requires some very high level knowledge. Always check the
Sure.
checklist. And
Right.
and there's there's a lot of things that could go wrong in an airplane
Sure.
and that could go wrong outside the airplane. So
Yeah.
how would you even, in your mind, this vision was so clear that you could do it. How did you know it was even possible to go about doing this? What do you think it was about you thinking differently than what the industry said needed to be done?
Yeah. They said it couldn't be done. And it is very interesting being like a trailblazer sometimes. Jim Rohn used to say sometimes pioneers get arrows, and I had plenty of arrows, from blazing a new trail. And even what we're doing with Moolah, like trying to tell people, hey, we've got some artificial intelligence models that can invest better than humans. Like, and explaining that to them is uh, seems far-fetched to some people. So when we came to people and said, we're going to teach you how to fly on the internet, we had to create the data to really back that up. And obviously you've got your early adopters. And I was tracking every stat. I knew that the average student pilot takes, X amount of hours before they solo, before they actually pass their, what's called their check ride, their big final exam, everything else. And I know they spend on about this much on average. And the FAA publishes all those things. So it's great public data. I said, okay, internally, how can I prove that sitting in front of your computer, watching the lessons on regulations, radio communications, airspace, emergencies, decision making, yes, they still had to get in the airplane and fly with an instructor anywhere in the world, but I was just teaching the ground theory to them. How could I prove that it's more efficient to learn in the comfort of your home on your schedule than every Wednesday night at your local airport, which is how we typically did ground school? So what we found was, hey, our students, not only did they solo sooner, which means they save more money, right? They also did their check ride with fewer hours, yet met the same standard, which also means they saved more money. So we were able to kind of put the data behind it. For the early adopters were great, but then you got these late bloomers and these laggards that come in who want to see that data. And you can say, listen, this is the data. This works. Um, and we went from having no competitors to now we have about 7 competitors that are actually in the space. And I welcome it all. By the way, it's great, right? It forces everybody to level up and certainly get better. Um, but this industry didn't even exist 16 years ago. It was just all taught in a physical classroom, limited by the fire marshal says only 30 people allowed in this room, right? Like, talk about not being able to create leverage in a business. We just use the power of the internet to expedite that.
Yeah, incredible. And I think so many businesses have had a similar tale around using the power of the internet to expedite or to create that leverage aspect. But it does take someone who's got a big vision to say it can be done. And like you say, the arrow's in the back. Now, going from almost giving up on it to turning it into a massive success. I'm sure there were a
Mhm.
number of challenges over the way, with scaling and
Wow.
growing it, of course. But looking back now, as you're forging ahead into a new area of interest, a new area of focus for yourself, what are
Mhm.
some of the things that really stand out for you as important to let our listeners know about what the end result of that effort, that 16 years of effort,
Yeah,
what did it really produce? Not just for the people flying safely now in the air, but
sure.
for you and your family personally.
Wow. Well, to the first point there, I want to be very mindful. Um, Oftentimes what you see on stage is the perfect performance. Our oldest daughter is 10 years old, and I just took her up to New York for her first Broadway play. Loves singing, dancing. And I was explaining to her as we're sitting there, hey, what you see on stage is beautiful. It's perfect. It's refined. But what you don't see is behind the stage, it's absolute chaos. There's people running around, they're half dressed, they're yelling at each other, they're bumping into each other. It's chaos. And they come out on stage and smile, and everything's just so perfect. And business is exactly like that. Unfortunately, especially in this influencer type society we live in, you only see what's on stage and you forget about the chaos behind the scenes. And what I would encourage other founders is to really embrace that chaos sometimes because everybody has it. If they don't, they're lying to you. Um, and the fruit of that labor really does come out. We first noticed that for the longest time, I just ran our business with the idea of Richard, I'm teaching people to learn to fly on the internet. And okay, that's interesting, would be a typical reaction. And then one day, again, this is thousands of customers into it, 30 employees, great business that's plugging along. Somebody sent in an email, and one of my support agents brought it to me and said, Jason, I think you need to see this. Now, for someone to send in a ticket and for it to make it all the way up to my desk, usually it's like a really angry customer or something like that. For it to make all the way to this, like, oh, great. What is it today? They said, no, you really need to see this. And the subject line was, you saved my life.
Mm.
I thought, okay, this is interesting. And he shared a story. He said, Jason, I was taken off at my home airport. I got to about 800 feet. I had a total catastrophic engine failure. Prop stopped spinning, engine seized, dead quiet.
Mm.
And there I am. He said, all I heard was your voice from your emergency lessons series. Push the nose forward, manage your airspeed, look for the best field, manage your best glide speed. He says he recited it to a T. He goes, you talked me from the moment the engine quit, you talked to me all the way till I made this perfect landing in this farmer's field. I didn't even hit the guy's cows. Like it goes, it was just this perfect landing. And I thought, I have mistakenly said what business we're really in. I thought we were just in the business of teaching people to fly. But at the end of the day,
Mm.
we're saving people's lives. And do you want to like our business changed exponentially when I got the whole team together. I said, you know what? Every day when you make your to-do list and every day when you look at that, you have to look at, says, everything on this list, is this going to help me achieve the goal of today, making people a safer, smarter pilot with the goal of saving someone's life today?
Mm.
The whole team changed when you look at everything through the lens. Like you take your work way more seriously, whether you're taking out the trash and scrubbing the toilets or whether you're writing the curriculum, it does not matter. Everybody played a part. in that success. And boy, when we found that battle cry to rally around, and everybody has that, right? I don't care if you're a plumber, I don't care what it is. Like everybody can have that to rally around. In your case, I'm sure your mind's spinning. Like you are in the business, right, of helping people not only create the financial freedom that they deserve and that they desire, but you're enabling people to spend more time with their children when their son says, "Hey, Dad, come throw the football with me." Richard created that moment, right? That's the kind of like when you build that rally cry around what you're doing, it changes the way you look at your business.
Yes, well, and coincidentally, we had a large team conversation today, and we're dealing with what we call a 911 in our business, which is when someone passes away, and
Wow.
we're
Yeah.
dealing with helping adjudicate and get the process going
Yeah.
for a death claim to support their family. And at the
Mhm.
time of our recording, Jason, this will air into 2025, but we're around the Christmas holidays, so everyone can imagine the impact of that taking place, and the
Yeah.
fact that we're able to show up with a check when it's all said and done
Yes.
really is an unbelievable feature that I get the
Mhm.
privilege to be a part of in the nature of the work that I do day in and day out.
Yeah, and to be there for that family. This isn't some faceless organization or whatever it is. Like it's Richard hopping on these calls and offering condolences and going above and beyond in every measure possible. Like when you look at your business that way, like it's a huge responsibility. Right. But you are perfectly equipped for it. And again, we could come up with a million analogies. I don't care if you're a plumber listening to this, like everybody has that bigger purpose that you're really accomplishing to serve your members, your customers, whatever you call them.
And speaking of a bigger purpose, we're going to talk more about what's the bigger purpose for Jason and his team and his family with the advent of Moolah. And we'll be doing that when we come back after this important break.